Good morning, families. It's Mrs. Kim. How are you? As you can see, I don't have any toys with me, so this is a video on behaviors. I'm actually doing consequences today, and are they appropriate, and what are the consequences that we can use at this age? Because it's a pretty controversial subject these days. I go into a lot of daycares and homes where you can't even say the word no, or you have to say no, thank you, even if like they bit you or hit you, or and that is the consequence. They say no, thank you, and then there's nothing after that. Like, people tell me that their child can sit at a table with a toy. So if you've bitten someone and you go and you sit at a table with a toy, to me that would be reinforcing. Now, just to let you know, like what my beliefs are, I am what's called a classic behaviorist. So choices have consequences. Good choices, good consequences. Bad choices, bad consequences. Not bad, but I'm saying, appropriate, age appropriate, and just appropriate in general. So now the first thing I want to talk about though is rewards. I know that doesn't make sense with consequences, right? But it actually does. You should be rewarding your child every day with verbal and physical praise for every single thing they do. I know that sounds excessive. I know it sounds kind of extreme, and it's obnoxious. Like, how many times a day do you have to say, "Woohoo! I'm so excited. You cleaned up your toys, you ate your dinner," or whatever it is? But remember, we talked about in the last video, they don't understand the difference yet between positive and negative attention. So whether we're hugging them or yelling at them, it's the same thing to them. They got you. They got you wrapped around their finger. They got to you. So I always use verbal and physical praise for everything they do right, because I want to get them in that habit of doing the right thing, or seeking out someone's attention in an appropriate behavioral way. We've all either seen the kids or had our own that, they're up in your face, they're blocking, like I'm trying to have a conversation with you right now, and this is their head. So I want to focus on those positives first so that they'll seek it out positively. And instead of coming in between our conversation, maybe they'll tap you, or if they have language, they might say ma. Or some of the kids I work with can even say excuse me. So they say excuse me. Whatever your child can do, whatever their positive way of seeking things out is, that's what we are hoping for. And I don't know if you can see that, but I got a notification, so I'm sorry about that. I don't know how to turn off notifications. So that's my first thing I'm going to say. Always positive. Always positive. And you celebrate it at a more obnoxious volume than you would, obviously your boss isn't going to come up to you and be like, "Way to go, give me a high five on that report." No, he'd do it in a more appropriate way. But these are toddlers, so their emotions are bigger. So we want to celebrate more so that we're really, really giving that idea of, if you want me, you can, like I said, tap me, give a sound, give a word, as opposed to getting in the middle of my conversation, or some kids even use aggression to seek attention, which is typical at this age, so don't think anything's not typical. But we want to try and now move them away from that. Now, your kiddos who don't have language, they tend to maybe use that a little longer, because not only are they trying to get your attention, they're a little bit frustrated because they have the idea, but they don't have the language to bring it out. So again, those kiddos too, we want to try to alleviate the pressure and give them positive feedback, so that that's what they seek from you. They don't seek that, like, I'm going to push mom's buttons or dad, sorry, I'm going to push their buttons to get my attention. So always be using verbal and physical praise. Okay. Always also, we talked about humor. Humor is another huge one to avoid the behaviors altogether. So I want you using those as our positive strategies. And I'm sorry, another notification. So if that doesn't work, what are strategies? What are consequences for actions? Well, most people don't know this, but the word no is a consequence, because what you're doing is you're not yelling it. Nope. Yelling is a very high level intervention that we use in a dangerous situation. So say your child is about to run into the street. You have to yell at them to gain their attention. Now, a lot of people, when they say no, they yell. Now, I'm going to steer you away from that because we need yelling. We need yelling in those times when they're dangling off something and it's dangerous and you need to get their attention. So if you're yelling a lot, they're not going to hear you in those dangerous situations. I always give the example of, have you ever watched Charlie Brown? And how the adults and teachers talk? They talk like wah, 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 wah. So if you overuse that yelling when you're giving directions and saying no, that's what you're going to sound like to them afterward. Wah, 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 wah. It's called being satiated. So they're just going to learn to ignore you, like I'm trying to teach you with the planned ignoring. They're just going to learn to ignore you because they're going to be able to phase that out in their head. I used to work at, if any of you are even old enough, I worked at Chi-Chi's Mexican restaurant, and they had mariachi music playing. And I liked it, but at first it was very distracting to me. Like, taking orders and stuff, like I couldn't, it was just there. And around 2 or 3 weeks, I realized it wasn't there anymore. It just had become part of the background noise. So I don't want you as a parent to become part of the background noise. So please, no yelling unless it's a dangerous situation, okay? But what I do want you to do is I want you to say no. Again, controversial to say that word, no. We all heard it growing up. That's the reason our toddlers say that's one of their first words, is because we say it to them so much. But you have to use it. Like, no, you can't touch that. No, you can't hit me. No, you can't have a snack right now. I mean, you can first say it in a very positive way. Like if they're bugging you for cookies and, it's 14 minutes till dinner, no is appropriate. Yeah, you can't have it. No. I had to learn that because this new school of behaviors that I'm seeing out in the community, I had to reteach myself no, because I'm not going to change that. If a child slaps me in the face, I'm not going to say no, thank you. That's just me and who I am. I'm going to say no hit is what I'm going to do. And with me, you're going to get a consequence. Now, when I work one-on-one with families, of course, I get their permission to intervene first. But usually with my families, with the behaviors, that's why I'm there to begin with. So I usually just have permission to intervene. But this is why I say no. And I say it in a very firm voice. I call it my mom voice. If you're a dad, you can call it your dad voice. So my mom voice says, no hit, just like that. Now, you notice I didn't say hitting. I said hit. The reason I do that is they're hitting me because they're mad. So I want to make sure that they're not blocking me out. And the first word has to be no. So where do you go there? Well, then you give a directive. You never say no by itself because toddlers, preschoolers by nature are very fast. They transition from one thing to the next very quickly. So just in 10 seconds, they've probably done 5 things. So if you just say no, it leaves it open-ended. And they're like, well, what did I do? Because I just did so many things. So I want you to say no. And now remember, this is all just my opinion and the experience that I've had over 24 years. Even my student teaching placements were with children with emotional and behavioral disturbances. So this is just this is me. This is how I was formed from the time that I started doing student teaching. So if you disagree with me, that's okay. You don't have to listen. You don't have to follow. But this is just in my experience, what I have learned. So this is the biggest one that taught me no was very powerful. My son, so in his daycare, how it was when they were little, they had their own little playground, and he was somewhere in between 15 and 18 months old. So to get to this playground, you had to go through the infant room. But there was a big picture window, and I could see them on the little playground. And I was watching just because I thought it was so cute, and I wanted to see, what my son was up to. Well, I watched him go up to a kid who was bigger than him. That's the craziest thing. And he took that kid and he pushed that kid so hard that child fell over. Now, I was waiting for the response because, being a behavior specialist, I wanted to see what they did. I heard them because the door was open. No, thank you, John. No, thank you, John. And that just, boop, that clicked something on in me. I walked outside down those steps and I took John by his shirt, which was not a good idea because I had lost it at that point. Because I felt like nobody was intervening, and I took him by his shirt and I said, you are not a bully. You do not bully. You do not push anybody over. What was I being? I was being a bully. I bullied him into not bullying someone else. So after that, I really thought about, okay, I don't want to be a bully, but I don't want to say no thank you either. And I mean, it did work. My son never pushed over another kid again, but I did it in the wrong way. What I should have done was gone down there and said to him, no push. And I could have used the child's name too. So what I'm doing is I want you to keep the language as many words as old as they are. Now, he was 18 months. And the first word is always no. So I had to add that second word. For your kiddos who are in that 2-year-old age range, you say no, you say what it was. If you have to go into the 3 word, that's okay too. Like I've had kids stand on a table. So I literally say, no, stand, table, before I take them off the table, just so they know what it is they did wrong. And like I said, they're going to be angry, and that's all they're going to hear. So keep it short. We've all seen parents, giving like a very young child a huge lecture in the community on why they shouldn't do whatever. Say hit. You shouldn't hit because it hurts mommy. And would you ever want to hurt mommy? Why would you want to hurt mommy? I do everything for you. Too much language. For a 5 or 6-year-old, yes, they have the understanding. But for a toddler, they really add in that emotion that, like I told you, is really big. They can't hear you. You wah, wah, wah. So that's why you say no hit, and just stern and a little bit louder. You noticed I raised my voice just a tiny bit. But that is actually a consequence, saying no hit with that stern mom voice. My own children, when they heard it, had different reactions. One would kind of stand at attention, and my other child would cry. Now, that told me that it was working. This is going to sound horribly mean, but if your child looks affected, meaning, the lip comes out, or they're like, okay. Or my other child would just cry. Like, it would just bring, I'm saying child because I don't want you to know which one. But it would bring them just to tears that I said no. And that was enough of a consequence, and they stopped doing it. Some children need more of a consequence. Planned ignoring is a consequence. You're ignoring them until they come around to your way of thinking. So you can use the no. I always use the no. Always. There is never a time that I don't say no with the directive. I'm not afraid of that word, because in later life, they're going to need the word no. When they get to kindergarten, their teacher, my husband's trying to distract me, sorry. Their teacher is going to say no. And if that's the first time they've heard that, the teacher is going to get that big reaction. And that's okay. If you don't believe in no, I totally understand. If you believe in the no thank you and it's working for you, do it. If it's not working for you, try it this way and see if it does work for you. Behavioral training and intervention, what it basically is I come into a parent's home, they tell me what's going on. They tell me what consequences and what, even the positive consequences that we talked about that they're using. I say, is that working for you? If they say yes, we keep it. If they say no, we don't keep it. And we try something else. So the next level of consequence is a timeout. I always start with a timeout for aggression only. That's the only time I use timeout. Or if a parent asks me, like, say a child is just chronically defiant and digging their heels in. Nope, they're not going to do it no matter what. And you've tried planned ignoring for the month. You've tried all of the, the proximity like we talked about, and it's just not working. And they're not giving you that feedback that it's working. They're like, pfft. I have kids who laugh right in my face because I've tried those strategies for a month and they're clearly not working. Does that mean that there's something wrong with the child? Absolutely not. This is, they call them the terrible twos for a reason. This is very, very typical. And laughing in your face is because they don't have empathy. Some kids do, and that's great. But generally speaking, typically, until about 3.5, we don't expect them to have empathy. So if they're laughing at you when you say no, don't think there's something wrong with them. It's just they haven't learned that piece yet. And part of that is because of their self-concept. Now, children don't develop a self-concept until about that same age either. So what is the self-concept? It means I, Miss Kim, Mrs. Kim, whatever you want to call me, Kim, I know that I am my own separate person. I am not a part of my husband, even though I love him to death. I'm not a part of him. I am not a part of my children, even though I also love them and would do anything for them. I am not a part of them. I am me. I make my own choices, good or bad. So they haven't developed that yet, usually. So what do they have at their age? Well, their self-concept is they see themselves as a part of their primary caregiver. So whoever is at home with them, mom, dad, they still see themselves as a part of you. That's why they don't have empathy. They just don't understand that there's separate feelings involved, and that their actions can bring about a negative reaction from you, because they think that their actions are your actions because they're a part of you. So I know that sounds really confusing, but that goes along with the social emotional aspect of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a timeout. Now, this timeout has evolved. It has evolved over 24 years. What I did 24 years ago, I realized was not truly what was effective. So through the years, and I still change it, and I still hand out new ones to the parents, because I'll learn something that, okay, I'm not doing that maybe the best way that I could be doing it. And the child or children are not responding the way that I would like them to respond. So I will change things. So I tell you, this is a constantly evolving process. Behaviors in general are a constantly evolving process, because a child will do something that I've never seen before, which sounds crazy, right? Because I've been doing it for 24 years and I have had everything aggressive happen to me, or so I think, until one day somebody does something new and I'm like, oh, well, that's never happened before. But I will tell you, typical terrible two behaviors, you think of them, you're hitting, you're kicking, biting. Yes, biting is a terrible 2-year-old behavior. I have a lot of daycare teachers especially who react in a huge way to biting, and my response is always, biting is age appropriate. We have to come up with a consequence so that they won't want to bite anymore. So yes, biting, age appropriate. I had a full inch, look at my hair, oh my God, it's terrible, sorry. I had a full inch patch about this big pulled out of my head by the roots. I was bald in that spot. That was typical. It was my fault too, because I had to see why the child wouldn't go into a car seat. The only way to do that is to put the child in a car seat. And he was in a fight or flight response. He grabbed my hair and boop. And it looked like a bouquet of balloons with no balloons holding it up. So typical. I have had kids rake me across the face. So I had 4 huge scratch marks. Typical. What else? On my arm, you can't see this. Well, maybe you can see this little scar. This is from a friend who was in distress. I put him in distress because in my job, I have to put them over their limit to see what happens when I do. So this is what happened when I put one of the little guys over their limit. They bit through the skin. Got a tetanus shot for that one. But again, my fault. But like I said, I'm trying to learn what it is that pushes them over so that I can teach them how to cope with that. So yeah, all my battle scars are age appropriate, and they're all my fault because this is a learning process for me. So this is my current timeout plan. I don't expect you to memorize it. So this is a lot. This is a lot of words, but I do it like this. If any of you want me to text it to you, let me know. I will certainly, or not text it, excuse me. No, I can text it. I can take a picture of it and text it to you, or I can email it to you if you want it. So for just text me privately and say, hey, Miss Kim, can you send me the timeout plan written out? So I'm going to go through it with you, but just if you want that written copy, because I give it to parents to post. Because when you're in the middle of a timeout, you might be mad too. You may have just gotten bitten through the skin. Where was it? It was somewhere. I lost it. Oh, there it is. You may have gotten bitten through the skin. Now, I don't know how, but this didn't bleed. There was one spot of blood. There should have been a lot of blood because literally I felt it go, like he bit a pinch and I felt it go right through. It didn't bleed, so I was able to work through that emotion with the child. If it had started bleeding, I would have had to obviously put the child down, universal precautions. But luckily it didn't. And since it was on my arm, I put my sleeve down. I had a long sleeve on, and it still didn't bleed. So I just dealt with it in that way. And then, of course, after it was over, it still wasn't bleeding. So it was crazy. But we were actually able, there we go, to work through those emotions. And the second that I was able to, that we calmed down, I, moved over, got a Band-Aid, put the Band-Aid on, put my Purell on, put my sleeve back down, and we worked through the remainder of it. So it was good. It really was, because the next time he did not even try to bite me. When I said no, he knew that I was going to have him work through it. So he worked through it with me, and came out on the other side. So all of those behaviors are age appropriate. If you can think of it, it's age appropriate. A toddler has done it. I've had parents text me in the middle of the night, is blah, blah, blah. One of them, I'm not lying. This happened. I woke up, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. At 3 o'clock in the morning, there was a text that said, is it normal for a child to play with their poop? Yes, by the way, it is. Why? It's warm, it's squishy, and it's available. That's why. So all of these terrible 2-year-old things, that's what they call them terrible for, is because they're terrible twos. So now I'm going to talk about now our timeout for aggression. So the first step I always do is I always say that no, and whatever it is, hit. We'll just use hit. No, hit. Now, and that's the voice I use, and I try to make direct eye contact. But usually they're angry, because they're angry at you usually because they hit you, and they're going, trying not to look into your eyes. So I just say it, no, hit. Now, the second step, and I'm looking at my sheet just to make sure I get them in the right order. My second step is I have a designated timeout spot. How do you pick a designated timeout spot? Well, I'm in my comfy chair right now. If I was put in this comfy chair for a timeout, I would be relieved and I would feel like it's a break. Now, I'm not making you put them on a bed of needles or anything like that. I don't like a timeout chair, because that's just one more thing they can fall off of or throw at you, whichever. So I feel that that's a little dangerous. I tend to put them right on the floor, in an area where there's not too many things that they can reach out and grab and touch. So if you can find a place where you have wall and floor, wall and floor. I literally, my children started timeouts very early. They were little pistols at 12 months old. So I would give them a little timeout on the kitchen floor with their back rested up against, it was a weird setup how our kitchen used to be, with their back set up against the dishwasher, and the microwave, I know it's weird, it was above the dishwasher. So I would set the timer for 1 minute. So yeah, I prefer to put their butt on the floor. You can't fall off of the floor. You can't throw the floor, and try to make it, like I said, in a spot where there's nothing really they can reach that's destructive or unsafe or that they can throw at you. Now, last time I talked about the 3 foot away rule, or the standing side, turning your back, or standing sideways. You always want to make sure that you can see them in your periphery, or you can hear them at least. The reason I take 3 feet away from them, again, another learned the hard way. I got hit and kicked. One child swept my knees, and I literally fell on the floor. So then it's like, okay, this timeout is over because I was stupid and I wasn't far enough away from them. So literally, I want you standing 3 feet away. Here is the thing. And I do want you setting a timer before I tell you the thing. They get 1 minute if they're 1, 2 minutes if they're 2, and so on. Now, you put the child in the spot, you press the timer. Now, you stand 3 feet away. Is your child going to stay in the spot? Most times they don't. The first, like we said, behaviors can take anywhere really from 2 to 4 weeks to make a true impact. So usually they don't stay. So I have had to master the looking through the shoulder, because what I want you to do is gently take the child and put them back in the spot. Now, this is the hardest part. A timeout is meant to be planned ignoring. You are not meant to be talking to your child through the tantrum or even looking at your child through the tantrum, because the second you've made eye contact or you've said something, the tantrum has lost its effect. It is meant to be planned ignoring because it's meant to feel like an isolation. You can rejoin our family when you have age-appropriate behaviors. And yes, biting is age-appropriate, but I have to I feel that I should give a consequence for biting. I feel that I should give a consequence for any aggression. I feel that there should be no second chances for aggression either, because you have just given them a free pass to hit you, bite you, kick you, pull your hair out, whatever the thing is they know affects you the most. And they're going to pick a time when they know you're the least prepared, and they're going to do it harder than they normally would have if you just would have given them the timeout to begin with. So I feel that you should not give a second chance. If they engage in aggression, that's it. That is the chance. And then an immediate no hit, and you place them in the timeout. You set the timer. Say they're 2 years old, set it for 2 minutes. The reason I do that is we want to train them on that audio cue, so that when they hear whatever it is, you could set it on your phone. I'm not good with phones, as you know, so I set it on the microwave just so that it will beep. I don't do that anymore in my own house because my kids are 11 and 17, but I sure do a timeout. Sending your kids to their room without technology is a timeout. So yeah, I do timeouts still. I just don't put their little butt on the floor anymore. So when they hear the ding, it's over. When you hear the ding, it's over. You don't keep putting them back. Now, there are strategies where you go on. If it takes 4 hours for them to sit in that spot for 2 minutes, you do it for 4 hours. I do not use that strategy. I use when 2 minutes is up, it's over. Now, will they go right back into what they were doing? Probably. They'll probably hit you right after, and you'll go right back into it. So we'll talk about picking a goal in a minute after we finish the timeout. So the first step, no hit. The second step, You put them in a non-comfy place that they cannot hurt themselves or you, and you use planned ignoring. Do not say anything. Do not look at them. Even when you're putting them back in the spot, like I said, look through their shoulder, like this area. That's where I aim. Or just look away. Put them back down. Don't put them back down hard, though. I don't want you, trying to make a point and you're mad. I get it. I get mad. I get mad at my own children, but we don't want to lose it. A timeout is supposed to be very controlled. You are not out of control. You never lose control. They might lose control, and it might turn into a whole blown out tantrum that then you have to ignore and let happen and cope. But they will not be controlled. So it is your job as the adult to stay in control. Okay, so ding, 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 timeout's up. We've stopped ignoring the child. What do we do now? Do we have a long, drawn-out conversation about hitting and why it hurts? No. Just like we talked about in the beginning. Wah, 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 wah. I want you to use the exact same language that you put them down with. So you say, no hit, and then it's over. There is, do you force an apology? Do you not? It depends on the age range, really. I don't force an apology because I got slapped in the face so many times waiting for an apology that the timeout would just start again. And we were like stuck in a loop. And so I finally said to myself, after probably 5 years, why am I doing this? They don't have empathy. If they will apologize, great. If they will give you a hug or accept a hug, great. But don't force it. I've gotten slapped. I've gotten raked. You name it, it has happened to me until I finally said, don't force this. When they get about 3 or a little older, you can start to question them. But if they have a receptive language delay, receptive is what you hear, they're not ready for that. If they're understanding what you're telling them at about 3 and older, then they might be ready for that. But I would still keep it short. I wouldn't do that whole long lecture. I would just say, hitting hurts. That's why we don't hit. Ask them questions. Why are you here? When they're at that level of understanding. And if they say hit, then you can say, hitting hurts me. It does. It hurts. I have some parents who, instead of going through this process, they will choose to hit their child back. They will choose to bite their child back. I'm going to say no on that one. You're the adult. There was a big thing, and I'm sure it's probably said when I was a kid, stop crying or I'm going to give you something to cry for. How is that going to make me stop crying? You've just threatened me now. So I'm probably going to start crying even more. And then you're going to come down on me because you just said it, that I'm going to give you something to cry about. Well, here we go. So you need to stay in control. And when the timeout is done, it is done. You do not bring it up unless they do it again. And I will guarantee you, eventually, sometime during the day, they probably will do it again. They will probably hit you again. And you repeat, sorry about that. You repeat that process every single time. So like I told you, behaviors take anywhere from 2 to 6 sometimes. Some of my kids have taken 6 weeks to improve. So you have to do it every time. Otherwise, guess what? That time starts over because you have just given them the signal. Oh, she let it go that time, or he let it go that time. Okay. I see how we're playing this. They're smart. They know when you're not following through. So you have to follow through. And I will also say, if you threaten them with a timeout for something, you have to follow through. You can't make empty threats. This is a story that, just helps. An empty threat. You have no milk and no diapers in your house. And you have told your child, if you do that one more time, we are not going to the store. Well, they do it one more time. You have no milk and you have no diapers, but you told your child that you can't go to the store if he engages in that behavior again. So you're going to have to not go to the store. So I wouldn't make threats that are impossible too. That's impossible. You need those things. Threatening a timeout. That is age appropriate. And if you threaten it, you have to follow through. If you can see a child escalating, you can remind them, like, remember, if you hit, we do time out. You can also, I have all my families, you can threaten that I'm going to come over. That actually works with a lot of families, because when I'm there in their house, I show them how to do a timeout. I purposely, this sounds so mean, and I'm not a mean person. I actually love toddlers, but I will push them into an aggressive state so that I can demonstrate a timeout. But I never, ever leave a child in distress. I would never do that to a family. So I teach them how to work through it. So that is our timeout. So you do step 1, no hit. Step 2, you find the spot and you set the timer and you you find the spot and put them in the spot. Step 3 is planned ignoring. Step 4 is when time is up. Tell them, no, that's step 5. Wait, I missed something. Oh my God, you guys, I am so sorry. Step 1 is the no hit. See, this is why I have the paper next to me. Step 2 is put them in the designated timeout spot. Step 3 is set the timer. I had set the timer mixed in with step 2. Sorry about that. So step 3 is set the timer. Step 4 is ignore the child. And step 5 is when the timeout is up, it's up. They can get up, and you repeat to them again, no hit. There's that optional step 6. If they will accept a timeout, or they will not, sorry, I'm getting all tongue-tied. If they will accept a hug, or they will make an apology, that's the time to do it. But if they don't want to do it, don't force them, or you're going to end up in the Miss Kim timeout loop. Now, you have to choose what is timeoutable. This is the last thing that I will say. If you choose, say your child has a few aggressive behaviors. Now, by aggression, all I mean are those behaviors: hitting, kicking, biting. Your child can even talk aggressively, they can't say it, but you know what they're saying. They'll point at you. Those are all considered aggressive behaviors. Aggression is not a bad word. That's just what it means. You're using your body to physically do something to someone else. That's aggression. And you can have an aggressive voice. I usually ignore the growling and the pointing. I'm like, not worth it. But my point is, I pick one behavior for timeout. So if they're hitting, kicking, and biting, I would pick one of those behaviors, because otherwise you're going to be stuck in toddler timeout jail every waking moment of the day. That's just how it's going to go. So I don't want you in toddler jail, and I don't want them in toddler jail either, because then nothing is going to be positive during the day. So pick one. If hitting is the biggest one, pick hitting. Biting is usually the most important one, because just like what happened to me, they could bite through your skin. And I don't think what happened to you or what happened to me will happen to you, where it won't bleed mysteriously and you can work through it. So that's just my tip. And remember, it has to happen every time whatever it is you choose, every time they hit you, they're in that same timeout spot doing the same routine. Always the same routine. So if you want me to, like I said, email it to you or text it to you, you guys all have my number, so let me know. I will put it up for a couple seconds before I stop recording. So for those of you who are watching this who might not know my phone number, you will have it for you. But yeah, so, and pick a day when you're ready, because you really have to be ready. It's gonna take up a lot of time, and it's going to take up, like I said, it could take up to 6 weeks to see a change. And that is with you doing it every single time. So remember, just like the planned ignoring, the story of my son in the mall, it took me 6 months. I saw a change in about a month. Those meltdowns started getting shorter, and we could make it a little further through the mall until it happened. So I was seeing change, but it took 6 months to remedy the situation. Behaviors are not an easy thing to change because that's one of the things that they can control. Toddlers can't control a lot, but they can control their behavior. So remember that. If you threaten a timeout, you gotta follow through with it. So if you have any questions, concerns whatsoever, I just recently found out also you can put comments on YouTube for me, and I can read them and respond to your questions. So I'm going to sign off for today. I've given you a lot of information. I can see that it's been close to 50 minutes now. But I am going to put this timeout thing up for about 1 minute just so that you can see it. The steps, if you can't get it from me, so that you can either screenshot it or write it down. But remember, we're all parents. We're all in this together. We all should be helping each other. And also remember, we did pick your battles for a reason. We're in a pandemic. We're all stuck together. And it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. So give your toddlers and your preschoolers a break, and give yourselves a break. You have emotions too. Give yourself a break. If you need to step away for, 10 seconds to count to 10, or whatever it is you do to go behind a closed door and have a little mini tantrum yourself, have it. You are entitled to your emotions. Yes, I have been angry at my children. Yes, I have lost it with my children. Those were my emotions in the moment. Do I regret it? No, I actually don't, because I learned from it. And we should always be learning and growing. So the last thing I'll say to you is always my catchphrase: there are no bad children, only bad choices. So let's help them make the right choices. Okay, friends, I'm going to sign off today, but I'm going to leave this up for 1 minute. Bye. If you need me, you know how to get me. Text me or comment me, and I will be there for you. What else am I doing, right? I'm at home. So please take care, stay safe. No bad children, only bad choices. So here is the timeout, and I'm so sorry that I misspoke. I sometimes do that. So let's see if it fits first. Oh, look, it fits. Oh, there we go. Okay. I think I almost got it. There we go. I'm going to leave that up until it says 50 minutes. And then I'm going to say goodbye. If you need me, get in touch with me. You know what I just realized? There's light coming through it. Hold on. I'm going to put it up with, hopefully, the newspaper behind it will help. Yep, look at that. Much better. I'll go just a few then extra seconds for you guys. Okay, this is Miss Kim. Get in here. And my son John signing off. Miss you all. Take care and be safe.